Welcome back, everyone. We're finally back with the second quarter. I'm your co-host, Dalton Carty. This is
I'm
co-host.
Jacob Eichenlaub.
Jacob.
He's not talking for me.
Right. But anyway, we dealt with some COVID issues, and now we're finally back. So let's kick off the first segment of our episode with our weekly recap. So first up, we're going to have the Saturday game with the Chiefs versus Broncos, a 28-24 win for the Chiefs. Barely coming out of that one with a win. What do you think about it?
Well, it was a great game to watch. Drew Lock played really well, especially putting 2 touchdowns in on the ground. And I really do think if Melvin Gordon didn't fumble late in the game, the Broncos had a chance to put it away.
Yeah, that is a game-changing fumble. Patrick Mahomes, 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran the most. 9 times he carried the ball for 54 yards. Hill only had 1 catch and 2 yards this game, but he was injured, so that could be a concern for moving forward into the playoffs. Again, he said game-changing fumble by Melvin Gordon. Drew Lock, 162 yards, and added 2 rushing touchdowns as well. Excuse me. Gordon's 1 rush accounted for more total yards than Williams. Gordon had a 47-yard run, and Javonte Williams, had 46 total yards this game. And they had the same amount of touches, even though Melvin Gordon put up about 64 more yards than him.
See, the Chiefs, with the win, the Chiefs clinched at least the 2 seed in the playoffs. And if the Texans were to upset the Titans, the Chiefs would end up with the 1 seed. But as we know, that didn't happen despite the Texans storming back late in that game. But the Chiefs ended up with a 2 seed and ultimately kept the Bengals from moving higher than seed number 3, and they ended up at 4.
They honestly could have moved to the 3 seed potentially if the Broncos win that game and Melvin Gordon doesn't fumble it.
Yeah.
So next up is the Cowboys versus the Eagles. First off, I'd like to say don't buy into the Cowboys. They were playing as a 51-26 win over the Eagles, but the Eagles were resting a lot of starters this game. Dak Prescott had a perfect QBR this game, had a perfect passer rating, 295 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Cedric Wilson is starting to become a name that people are recognizing. 119 yards and 2 touchdowns for him as well.
Yeah, next year, don't draft Amari Cooper in fantasy football. I did it this year. I regret it. I still won. Still won my league. Don't worry, but don't draft him.
Yep, so the Eagles were resting starters this game, as we mentioned before. Minshew, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Breakout game for Quez Watkins. He had 84 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, don't buy into the Cowboys. They are 6-5 outside of their division, and they're 6-0 within their division, and it's a pretty weak division if you ask me.
I'm pretty sure they also haven't beat a team with 10 wins all year, but despite that, they're going to host the 49ers on Wild Card Weekend, while the Eagles are going to travel to Tampa to take on the Bucs, who they did play earlier this year. I think it might have been Week 8. Tom Brady completed like 81% of his passes against Philadelphia, his highest on the season. So both these games should be good. I'm looking forward to the 49ers and Cowboys more than the Eagles game. But the next game, we're heading to the afternoon games.
So Steelers versus a Raven, a 16-13 win in overtime for the Steelers that pushes them into the playoffs. Big Ben, 244 yards, a touchdown and interception. Claypool was their best rusher this game, despite having 3 attempts and 37 yards. Each Steeler to catch a pass this game had no less than 4 receptions, which is crazy if you ask me. Another huge statistic is T.J. Watt ties the sack record here at 22 and a half sacks.
The Steelers also issued an appeal to the league to try and get him 1 more because he did have a TFL.
That's true.
I believe it was on a designed quarterback run.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying
Is that
to get,
one where Huntley fumbled the ball?
I don't remember. I think
so.
But they're looking to get that turned into a sack so he has the record. Personally, I think he kind of deserves the record anyway. I don't know if you guys know, or watched the game at all, but back in like 99 or whenever it was, Strahan was gifted that last fucking sack by Brett Favre. Like, Favre rolled out right into him. It was obvious.
So, and then moving on to the Ravens statistics, Mark Andrews has had his 5th straight game of over 85 yards or more, and he finished 6th this year total in receiving yards. So a phenomenal year for Mark Andrews this year. Really asserting himself as the number 3 tight end in the NFL, just, behind Kelsey and Kittle. Huntley had the same quarterback rating as Sam Koch, who threw 1 incomplete pass this game. Had 1 passing attempt, and it was incomplete. And then Latavius Murray had a big game, 150 yards and a touchdown on 16 carries as the Ravens lose this game and the Steelers move themselves into a playoff spot.
This could have been Big Ben's last game in that uniform, but he delivered a win to Steelers fans hoping to go out with a win, provided the Chargers and Raiders didn't tie on Sunday Night Football, and so the Steelers still had hope. So up next, we got the Bengals and Browns, which resulted in a 21-16 win for Cleveland. And honestly, this game meant nothing to nobody.
Bengals really didn't try to win this game. They started Brandon Allen in place of Joe Burrow. T. Higgins sat, Joe Mixon sat, and Jamar Chase was really in there just to grab the franchise record for receiving yards for a single season. And then he was pulled out after 2 plays. So Brandon Allen, 136 yards and a touchdown. They did have a defensive touchdown, which was their only other touchdown of this game, other than the Brandon Allen touchdown pass. Keenum had 176 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception, and Dearness Johnson had another big game with 123 yards and a touchdown. 4 sacks for the Browns defense this week, but like I said, they're starting to back up. And they didn't finish last in the division with this win. They bumped down the Ravens to last place as they lost to the Steelers.
Yeah, but you got to think, though, Lamar was out for, 6,
yeah,
7 weeks?
Definitely injuries, and then losing your running back so early in the season.
The Ravens are a playoff team. They're a top 3-4 seed in the AFC if there's no injuries.
When healthy, yeah,
yes.
I agree. I mean, they potentially could have been. If Lamar doesn't get hurt, they could be a division winner.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Washington football team versus the Giants, a 22-7 win for the football team. Heineke only had 120 yards, and Antonio Gibson had 146 rushing yards. He had more rushing yards than his quarterback had total yards.
Bobby McCain, DB for the football team, picked off Jake Fromm twice.
Coming up with big interceptions. Fromm only 103 yards. He did throw his first career touchdown pass this game, and then, like you said, the 2 interceptions.
Yeah, just right after this game, a couple days, Joe Judge was let go of by the Giants. Mm-hmm. They're now looking for a new coach and looking forward to the draft. I believe they have
that is the only bright spot of this franchise at the moment is those two top 10 picks.
And they lost their shitty coach. So
Saquon Barkley only ran for 30 yards this game and has not had a rushing touchdown in 9 weeks. Understandably, he has been hurt for some of that time, but, being the number 2 overall pick in the draft a few years ago, you got to think he's going to have to be better than that. Let's see. Moving on to next week, the Bears versus the Vikings was a 17-31 finish for them as the Vikings take the win. Andy Dalton had 48 passing attempts this game, 325 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Darnell Mooney with a big game with 12 catches for 126 yards.
If you caught Mike Zimmer's post-game interview, they asked him if he knew Jefferson was just a few yards away from the single-season record for receiving yards in Vikings history. He said, "I only care about wins. I don't care about records." And he didn't make the playoffs. He got fired after the game, and I don't know.
He was a very bad locker room presence from what you've seen from post-game interviews. Didn't seem like he cared about the players at all.
He did not. And also, Matt Nagy finally fired. Bears fans are happy about that. Hell, I'm happy about it, and I'm not a Bears fan.
And then Kirk Cousins finished the season off strong, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then, like you said, Justin Jefferson was just a few yards away from the franchise record for receiving yards. He had 107 yards in this game and a touchdown. And then Amir Smith-Marset had 3 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown, and then 7 sacks total for the Vikings defense this week. So they played very well this week. Moving on to the next game, Colts versus the Jaguars, 11-26 finish, and a huge upset that cost them.
Talk about a trap game. Colts win. They're in the playoffs. The only thing that stood in their way was Trevor Lawrence and the fucking 2-14 coachless Jacksonville Jaguars.
The worst team in the NFL.
The worst part about this is the Jags fucking won, and they're still getting the first pick in the draft.
Yep, absolutely. Colts choked to the worst team in the NFL. Wentz 185 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Jonathan Taylor only finished with 77 yards this game. Finished with over 1,800 total. And then Trevor Lawrence finally looked like a number 1 pick this week.
And not even just that, the Colts were outscored by the Jags kicker, Matthew Wright, by himself.
Wow.
Matthew Wright put up 14 points. He had 4 field goals and 2 extra points. The Colts had 11. He got outscored by a kicker. Not a good one.
And then the Jaguars also did this without James Robinson, arguably their best player. Jaguars had 7 total sacks this game, and Damian Wilson had a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble, so a big game for him. And as Jacksonville secures the number 1 pick.
Yes. All right, next we got the Packers and Lions. Packers already clinched the 1 seed. This really didn't mean anything. But Aaron Rodgers did play for the first half, and the Lions did win. Obviously, they get the number 2 pick now after beating the Packers. If they did lose, they secured the number 1 because the Jags beat the Colts. But, this is a battle of the St. Brown brothers, Amon-Ra, and I don't know how to say that one's name. I'm not going to lie to you. And the little brother, Amon-Ra St. Brown, ended up outplaying his brother and winning the game. And the Packers have a first-round bye, so we'll talk about them more once we get to the divisional round to find out who their opponent's going to be.
I really feel like Aaron Rodgers sealed the MVP with his first half performance of 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Goff, two touchdowns, and then Tom Kennedy, who is a wide receiver, had one pass, one completion, one touchdown for 75 yards, which is he has more career passing yards than he does receiving yards. Keep in mind he's a wide receiver. 54 career receiving yards.
I think another
75
thing.
passing yards.
I think another big thing that was displayed in this game is that the Packers cannot rely on Jordan Love. That dude is not good at football. I'll admit I was high on him when he got drafted.
Well, he's still technically considered a rookie, only playing in, 2 games so far?
Yeah. Essentially still a rookie, even though he is in like his second year. But he's not a good quarterback. If they let go of Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be in rebuild mode for at least another 2 or 3 years after that.
And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, his 4th straight game with 90-plus yards and a touchdown.
That man was the waiver wire pickup of the year. I picked him up. He won me a fantasy championship.
He's definitely a bright spot for the Lions moving forward.
They got a lot to look forward to. They got the number 2 pick. Their offense is coming together. Dan Campbell is a good coach.
Yeah.
He just seems to have a great locker room presence. The guys respect him. If I want a coach that's not Bill Belichick or someone of that caliber, I want Dan Campbell.
Yeah. So moving on to next week, or not next week, the next game, Titans versus the Texans. Titans sealed the number 1 pick with this win. Ryan Tannehill looked phenomenal in this game, unlike he did last time they played the Texans. He had 287 yards and 4 touchdowns instead of 4 interceptions. Westbrook-Akeen, Brown, Jones, and Berkser all had 50-plus yards and a touchdown in this game. So really spreading the ball around, sharing the sugar. This was Julio Jones' first touchdown with the Titans. After 18 weeks, he finally gets a touchdown.
Yeah, touchdown that sealed the game, too. I believe they were up, 21-0 at half?
I couldn't tell you.
I think it was 20. I don't know. But I know the Texans kind of stormed back and made it like a 3-point game.
Mm-hmm.
Then that late touchdown by Julio sealed the deal as it made it a 2-possession game. The Texans just couldn't fight back.
Texans might have something in Davis Mills.
They do.
301 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Tyrod curse continues. This was his 7th game with a 92-plus QBR rating for Davis Mills. So a lot to look forward to. And then Danny Amendola kind of turned back the clock to 113 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it looked like Tom Brady was throwing him the ball.
Mm-hmm. And the Texans as a franchise are just an L. I mean, they hired the coach this year, and then after one season when I think he exceeded expectations,
I feel like they were
let
not.
him go.
I feel like with everything that was going on with Deshaun Watson and everything, they probably weren't projecting more than 2-3 wins.
Mm-hmm.
He got 4 with Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor as his starting quarterback. What is the point in hiring if you're going to give him 1 year to be great or he's gone? There's no point in that. You know you're a bad franchise. You know you don't have a good team. Give the guy a chance. Let him build relationships with the players and the ownership and everyone, and just let him rebuild your team.
I completely agree. In my opinion, I think it was a bad move. Who knows? They might find the next Bill Belichick,
Maybe,
but as of right now, it looks
it.
like a terrible move. Moving on to the next game, Jets versus Bills. 10-27 win for the Bills as they sealed
I want to say
the 3rd
something
seed.
here. Zach Wilson played fucking atrocious. He threw 20 passes, completed 7.
35% completion percentage.
He had maybe I think he had 87 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He did it up with a touchdown. What the fuck's the point in that? It was 13-10 at half. No, it was actually 13-10 heading into the 4th quarter. Just New York gave up 2 straight touchdowns, so the defense couldn't stop Buffalo, and that was that. I mean, Zach Wilson's got to play better. The number 1 pick and the number 2 pick in this year's draft looked ass all year. I'm sorry, but they didn't look good. I understand they're on bad teams, bad franchises, but they looked horrible. Jamar Chase, Davis Mills. Name any other rookie in the class who got decent playing time. They were better.
I agree. Zach Wilson was also their best rusher with 24 total yards. Michael Carter had 19 yards on 9 carries, and 10 of those yards came off of 1 play. Josh Allen, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, also 63 rushing yards. He's really a dual threat, and you wouldn't think that coming from a 6'5", 240 quarterback. He's very mobile.
Especially with the cannon he has, you think he'd be more of a pocket passer, like field general type of guy, but no, he can run. And obviously heading into the wild card weekend here, the Bills are going to host New England. The weather's supposed to be around 2 degrees with wind chill. Going to be -5, -10. Should be a good game. And the Jets obviously missed the postseason. Now they hold the number 4 and number 10 pick in this year's draft. Number 10 coming from Seattle and the Jamal Adams trade.
So they do have quite a bit to look forward to as a Jets franchise. I feel like they have a solid coach in Robert Saleh there too.
Not bad. He's a good defensive coach.
They also have Corey Davis, who's been hurt quite a bit this year. And then Michael Carter, at times, seemed like he was a good running back.
And obviously, if you get Zach Wilson some weapons and maybe some fucking protection,
the Bills had 9 sacks this game.
He probably isn't. He's not as bad as it shows. I'm sure of it. Just he has no protection. His best weapon at the time is like Elijah Moore, who's a good receiver, but he just has no one else to throw to.
Moving on to the next game, the Saints versus the Falcons. Saints get a 30-20 win, which they would have had a playoff spot.
Provided the Rams beat the Niners.
Which obviously didn't happen. Hill had 170 yards and a touchdown and a near-perfect passer rating. Simeon, 71 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I personally, I think Alvin Kamara is overrated. Even though he had 30 attempts this game for 146 yards, I personally think that Alvin Kamara is probably one of the most overrated running backs in the NFL.
I definitely agree.
I don't believe in his NFL career he's had more than 1,000 yards rushing.
In a single season?
In a single season, I don't think he's had more than 1,000 yards rushing in a single season. Matt Ryan, 216 yards and a touchdown and interception. Russell Gage has really stepped up in these last few games, having 9 catches and 126 yards with a touchdown. And then Mike Davis was the Falcons' best rusher this game with 30 total yards.
And obviously the next game we got the Patriots at Dolphins, which ended in a 33-24 win for Miami. The Dolphins led most of the game. The Patriots kind of brought it back. It was 27-24 with like 3 seconds left. The Patriots had to go like 98, 99 yards. And they went for like a wide receiver screen, and just a bad pitch from Jacoby Myers resulted in a Dolphins touchdown, which made the score look worse than it was. But the Dolphins did lead pretty big the whole game.
Tua Tagovailoa had 109 yards and a touchdown. And the Dolphins are undefeated against quarterbacks with the letter O in their last name.
I saw that.
They're 9-0 against quarterbacks.
And they're 0-8 against quarterbacks that don't have the letter O in their last name.
So it seems like they can only beat guys with who have O's in their last name.
I don't know. I think the Patriots need to get Tom Brady back because he doesn't have that O there.
That's true.
Duke
Johnson has really stepped up for, the Miami Dolphins. 117 yards and a touchdown. And then, as you mentioned before, it was a one-score game with 3 minutes left.
3 seconds.
3 seconds. Excuse me. And then the Dolphins ended up recovering a touchdown and a fumble for a touchdown in the end zone.
Yeah, with no time left. It wasn't really an important touchdown or anything.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots still locked up a playoff spot. Yeah. It didn't really affect much other than they play the Bills, they play the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, really the only thing that would have changed it is if the Raiders and Chargers tied, and then the Patriots would have got the 5 seed and headed to Cincinnati instead of Buffalo. Then the next game, we got Seattle and Arizona. It was a 38-30 victory for Seattle as Russell Wilson threw for 3 touchdowns, and Rashad Penny also had a great game with 190 yards rushing and a touchdown.
In 4 of his last 5 games, he's ran for more than 135 yards and a touchdown, so absolutely ridiculous from him. He was also a waiver wire pickup of the year as well.
Yes. I believe Seattle does not have a first-round pick this year, as they did trade to the Jets. So I've also heard talk about them either firing Pete Carroll or trading Russell Wilson. I believe they're going to get rid of Pete Carroll. I want to see what happens there. And for the Cardinals, they're going to go into L.A. to play the Rams for the 3rd time this year. So far, the series is split 1-1 on the season. So that should be an interesting game to watch.
Yep, and with this loss, the Cardinals lost the division. If they'd have won this game, they would have won because, the 49ers beat the Rams.
Yes.
Moving on to the next game, Panthers versus Buccaneers. Buccaneers absolutely swamped the Panthers, 41-17. Nobody really saw anything different coming out of this. Sam Darnold was starting at 219 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. 3 running backs had 8 or more carries, and 3 receivers had 7 or more catches this game for the Panthers. And then Brady throws for 326 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kind of puts himself in the MVP conversation as he has 5,300 yards total this year. But Aaron Rodgers really locked it up with his first half performance.
Yeah, also the loss to the Lions really showed that Aaron Rodgers is probably the most valuable player in the league. And listen, if you think Jonathan Taylor should get the MVP, you're wrong.
Yep.
You're wrong.
If Derek didn't get it last year, Jonathan Taylor's certainly not getting it this year.
I understand the touchdown value, and the Colts probably would have been dog shit without him. But Derrick Henry had a statistically better year last year than Jonathan Taylor did. And he didn't get a vote. He did not get a single vote for MVP. Vote.
I understand that the quarterback competition last year was probably a little bit tougher than it was this year. But again, Derrick Henry had better stats last year than Jonathan Taylor did this year.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry if that offends you, but I mean, Derrick Henry had the 5th most rushing yards all time.
Yeah, he was on pace for back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons this year until he got hurt.
Yeah, at one point this season, Derrick Henry was on pace for 32 touchdowns, which is an all-time record, and 2,500 yards, which beats the record by over 400. Yeah. So moving on to the next game, the Rams versus the 49ers.
I want your opinion on something here, okay? So after this game, this dude texted me and said that the pick that sold the game from Ambry Thomas was Odell's fault. not the fact that Stafford underthrew him by 5 yards.
I think it's the fact that Odell Beckham didn't even try.
Well, you're
to
in
swat
stride
out.
running, expecting to hit you over the top.
Well, if he slows down, there could be a pass interference call. I mean, that's why you throw the deep shots and underthrow them sometimes, is specifically for the pass interference call.
I don't think it was an intentional underthrow.
I mean, good job by the 49ers defender. Ambry Thomas, to get turned around and intercept the ball.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in most cases, they're focused on the receiver's hands and, swatting away the ball there. But Jimmy G played phenomenal, 316 yards, 1 touchdown, even though he had 2 interceptions. Deebo Samuel had a perfect passer rating this game. He was 1 for 1, 24 yards and a touchdown. Also had 45 rush yards and a touchdown. And then to conclude everything else, he had 95 receiving yards. So he's really a jack of all trades. Deebo Samuel could be an offensive player of the year candidate if it wasn't for Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and now the Niners end up with the 6th seed after this, and they're heading to Dallas. And the Rams, like we already talked about, are playing the Cardinals on Monday night. The first ever Monday night wildcard game, I believe. Going to be a good one. Both those games should be pretty good. And final game of the week, Sunday Night Football. This was probably one of the best games I've ever watched.
Game of the year.
This
Gotta
was
be
like
the game
one of
of
the
the
best
year.
games I've ever watched.
This is why some people think the NFL is rigged. It's scripted. It's set up.
No,
they'll come to Chase Young, Joe Burrow. Hey, buddy, you're gonna love this week. Tear your ACL for us. Listen, Deshaun.
Aaron Hernandez, you're gonna love this.
You're gonna love this one. Deshaun, buddy, my superstar. How we doing?
No, but you obviously understand that both teams, if they tied, they would have both made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders win, they get the 5, and the Steelers get the 7. If the Chargers win, they get the 6, and the Steelers get the 7. So if one team won, the Steelers got in. If they tied, the Chargers and Raiders got in.
I just want to say Justin Herbert played phenomenally.
Justin Herbert played absolutely insane.
Through 64 pass attempts, 383 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. And just on 4th down alone, he was 6 for 6 on passing attempts, 106 yards and a touchdown.
Yes.
I mean, phenomenal. Eckler, 99 yards from scrimmages, 2 touchdowns. Mike Williams, 119 yards, and then the game-tying touchdown to send it into overtime.
And I really think if Brandon Staley does not call that timeout to try and get the ball back, presumably, the Raiders would have just kneeled it out and ran the clock down. They were happy with the tie, let's be honest. You're going to the playoffs regardless if you tie. You have the ball. You have your fate in your hands. You called the timeout. You gave the Raiders a chance to get a first down, and then you obviously you kind of pissed them off. You kind of deserved it. I feel so bad for Justin Herbert.
If you watch post-game interviews with the Raiders head coach, whose name eludes me at the moment, and then Derek Carr, if you watch Will Compton's podcast on Bussin' with the Boys, they talk about, I mean, we were kind of content with taking a knee and, sending ended it in a tie. Just guarantee yourself a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Don't risk a field goal at getting blocked and returned.
Yeah.
But that timeout really, because it was a 3rd down when they called the timeout. And it was kind of like setting them up like, hey, fuck you. We want
the ball back.
So, Brandon
they weren't
Staley was just a dumb call.
They probably could have attempted a field goal, but I don't think they would have made it from as deep as they were.
But it would have been a 57-yard field goal.
And
I think Carlson's is a 59 as long as a 59.
I just think that was a horrible timeout call. Then that run by Josh Jacobs just kind of sealed the deal there, as that put the Raiders in field goal range, and they sent a big old middle finger to Brandon Staley and the Chargers.
Yeah. Brandon Staley with a dumb call, a very, very dumb call that really kind of cost them, because I like they said, they were content with running the ball out. Yeah. Obviously, that's not the outcome you want with a division rival. But
if you're guaranteed a playoff spot, your job as a coach is to get your team into the playoffs no matter what it takes. Yeah, that is your job as a coach.
Even when they were taking the field goal, I was like, this is a dumb play, because it could get blocked in return. It's very unlikely, but in the chance that it does happen, you're probably fired.
Yeah.
Right after that game.
Yeah.
Being the Raiders coach, if it's blocked in return and the Chargers make it, not you.
Yeah.
So that's actually going to conclude. It's going to conclude on a high note. It's going to conclude this segment's episode.
Yeah.
So in our next one, we're gonna be running down our top 10 teams, and obviously it's just going to be only playoff teams because they're obviously the best. So we'll see you in the next.